Hey, so today I'm going to talk about the value of a buyer's agent. And it's not cut and dried. So if you're looking for a numbers based presentation, that's not this. But I think I'm going to give you some good things to think about. So, first, I'm going to show you a quote that I've heard several times from some of my clients, and I just think it's the highest compliment. And that is, wow, I never thought of that. Because to me, that says that we've been talking about something that's important to them, and I just reminded them of something really meaningful that can save them time or money. And in many cases, it's thinking ahead of something that could happen, fleshing out all the possible outcomes and helping them pick the best option. And people just don't think ahead. And because you're in the weeds, I mean, you're buying a house. This is nobody's fault. It's very natural. You're in the weeds with your lender. You're in the weeds with your home repair, or you're about to write an offer and you're stressed out and you don't know if you're picking the right house. There's just a lot happening. And so fundamentally, what I think this quote represents is the ability for the agent to step away from all that and say, okay, let's just look at this, and this. And so I like to put this quote here because I think it is a compliment, because it means you're helping them think about something. Before we get into other points to consider that have value in a buyer agency relationship, is that in my head, there are two kinds of value. When I hire anyone, not just a real estate agent, but there's the person you're hiring to guide you, to advocate for you. You're expecting them to give you suggestions, to make proposals, and help you think of options, and then help you pick the right option. And then there's a more transactional role. Maybe I want to be in charge. I know what I want. I just want you to do it. And I think a lot of people can relate to this type of breakdown in terms of home improvement. If you hate your backyard and you have a water retention problem and you're just like, God, it's just a swimming pool, the water doesn't drain, you need to hire someone who can look at that and say, actually, it's this or this, and they can identify the problem. They know multiple options for how to fix that drainage problem versus, I want you to put in a French drain right here. Those are two very different things. I think most people can relate to that. It's harder when you're talking about realtors because people are different, processes are different, and there's no standard along the line. So you have to decide for you, what service do you need an advocate for? Do you already know the neighborhood and you just need help navigating the contract? Or are you coming here from somewhere else and you need to find the right area for you? So the scope of work is different, but in general, the advocate is going to not wait to be told to do something. They're going to think ahead and they're going to know what they need to tell you about, and you can decide whether or not that's important or not, but they're still going to tell you. Versus, again, transactional, they just wait to be told. A transactional agent is going to say, what do you want to do? What price do you want to offer? Versus an advocate is going to say, well, I think the value is this. Here's the range. We could do a combination of X, Y, or Z for an offer, and they're going to talk through it, not just do what you want. So that out of the way, let's get into some of the things that I see as value, and it does depend on the market. The value back in COVID was actually winning a house. You had to be prepared, you had to be knowledgeable, you had to emotionally be ready to write more than the list price. And that was, to me, the value of using an agent, was actually winning a house. And knowing what it took to win a house. And in a more neutral market, this is more the traditional value of, okay, here are your options. Here's how the market's working right now. Let's find the property for you on your terms. And it's just not as dramatic as COVID was. And then in a buyer's market, maybe they're helping you not overpay and negotiating the right price in the terms based on that market in that neighborhood. And just because it's a buyer's market in a bunch of places, maybe in the neighborhood you want to live, it's not a buyer's market. So they're going to guide you in those ways. And again, they're not going to wait for you to tell them what to do. They're going to make suggestions. You don't have to listen, but they're going to know what's important, and they're going to be able to tell you what the market is like in that area. So looking past that, what does an agent actually provide? And fundamentally, I think it's protection and risk management. And mostly this is helping you know what you're getting into, because I could tell you something bad about a house. It doesn't mean you're not going to buy it. It's just you want to be aware. And so there's so many uncertainties. I think education is the best protection. Again, you're knowing what you're walking into, or you're able to make an offer based on that knowledge versus just finding out later. My favorite story about this was during COVID, so it is dramatic, but I had a buyer couple that was very specific in what they wanted. We found this amazing house, and this was the kind of property where, had it gotten competitive, the due diligence fee would have been tens of thousands, if not $100,000. And there were just enough red flags about this property that I did some research and found out some things about the house that caused the buyers to not go under contract and not write an offer. And that value to me, I don't think we ever really talked about it because we just moved on, was I saved them that due diligence money. They would have walked if we had learned that information within the contract. So I think a good agent, if they know what you want, and there's nothing is foolproof. I mean, things will come up during due diligence, but it was such a heated time. That's just one example of they can save you money by not buying a house, So it's not just looking at the transaction that you eventually work on them with, but what did you learn on the way to that property? That has value. Did they save you from buying a certain house? That has value. So it's very hard to put this into a number. So some examples here. It's a story that I told. The public records showed us everything we needed to know in that case. And then it doesn't mean you don't buy the house, but maybe you write into the offer something that helps you overcome that risk. And then a good agent will know what questions to ask. I've had clients ask ChatGPT what questions to ask during a home inspection, and that's great. But even to go a step further, well, do you know what to do with the answers? Do you know if the answers matter? Which answers matter more than others? And some people need help with that. Knowing the questions, what to do with the answers, all of that is just guidance. The second thing I want to talk about is that an agent is invested and they just do what it takes. They're going to think ahead. Again, there's not sort of a scope of work that they're waiting on you. There's not a lot of dependencies other than obviously you being pre-qualified to buy the house, but they're not going to wait to hear from you before they check out a property. I do this all the time. I might go look at something that technically isn't a fit, but gosh, it's got an amazing kitchen. And maybe you go look at it. Most people know what they need, but that's just one example of not waiting to be told what to do. The compensation, I think, has value in the way that it's structured for a buyer. You're only paying this person at the result. So you're worried about your down payment. You are focused on saving money, and maybe there are some repairs that have to be made, so you need some cash for that. And oh, by the way, you need a new couch or something. I think the model itself has value. And just another way to think about that is if you think about, what if you paid someone hourly? It doesn't matter the fee per hour. I think that would change your entire behavior, and I think it could hurt you as a buyer, meaning you might not look at a house. Oh, I have to pay just to see that house. You might not want an agent to be proactive. Well, I'm just going to buy this house no matter what. And then you get surprised at the end because you're like, oh, wait, that's going to cost $2,000 to do all that research. I don't know. And I think you would just behave differently if you had to pay someone to do what agents actually do. So much of what agents do is behind the scenes. We all have checklists, but a lot of the value is in the agent's head and what they're thinking ahead and what they're thinking about for you. And their knowledge from just all the time that they've been out there looking at all the different houses and dealing with insurance and roof inspections and just all the things. That's kind of a messy answer, but I think hopefully this presentation has helped you think of some things that maybe you haven't thought about before and gives you a new perspective on what a buyer agent does and where the value is.